Well, good evening and welcome to a special election edition of The Edge. As always, I'm your host, Trevor Lewington. Typically, on the third Thursday of the month, I'm talking to community and business leaders in Southern Alberta, folks that are having a real impact on our community. Can give you some advice on building a community, building your life, and maybe building your business. Tonight, however, we're going to take a little bit of a pause on the regular routine and talk to someone who's decided to challenge the big mayor's chair and go after the big seat in this municipal election. So, thanks so much for joining me tonight.
Trevor, I am super excited about being here. I want to say that I want this to be the best interview you've done in 2025. So please hold me to that.
All right, lofty bar.
If it gets boring, like hit the buzzer, kick me under the table, whatever it is.
All right, so there you go. Challenge has been set. The bar has been set. And by the way, if you're joining us on Roku TV or the YouTube website or the Jess FM website, we're really grateful that you've found us. We're really grateful that you're spending some time with us this evening. And in particular, I know you're busy campaigning all over the place. We've got to keep a tight deadline here to make sure we can get you to your next event. We'll talk about the whirlwind that is municipal politics.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm a little late. I took Whoop Up. I started at 3, and what time is it now? So, yeah.
Okay, so we're going straight into the bridge stuff. Good man, good man. No holds barred interview. I love it. But I mean, for the people that maybe don't know your background or perhaps haven't been to your website, can you talk a little bit about who Ryan Mennie is and like how did we get here?
Sure. Long time Albertan, born in Edmonton. Grade 1, moved to Sterling. You're familiar with that place.
I can talk about that one, yeah.
Spent a really good early childhood there, and then moved, would come in every weekend and visit the grandparents who lived in Bridgeville Estates and hang out here, go to Henderson, go to a drive-in movie when we still had those.
Okay. That was a thing, yeah.
E.T., Last Starfighter, and Dark Crystal, 1982-ish. You know, I'm still wearing the Winnie the Pooh jammies and
nice.
Going to the concession in my jammies going, am I too old for this now? I think the fact that I'm recognizing I might be too old for this now, I guess I'm too old for this now to be in the onesie ordering my popcorn at the drive-in. And then high school, moved to Lethbridge here, went to LCI, and knew exactly what I wanted to do quite early on, which was get into radio.
Okay.
And as a storyteller first, and then the writing side of it is what I was after, and took the program at Lethbridge College. Was very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. Spoke to a gentleman, PT was his name, Paul Tessier, and people from the area might remember him from Lethbridge Radio. He also was in Brooks at that time. He was the morning guy.
Okay.
And I made the right impression at the right time. And 18 years old, barely shaving, moved away from home and started my radio career that took me across a few spots in Alberta. And then I had the opportunity to move west. At this time, I was like most Lethbridgians. I'd never been past Kelowna. And so my career took me to Nanaimo, which was a neat comparison. It was a city about the size of Lethbridge at that time.
Right.
In the mid-90s, and I had the opportunity to open up the first FM radio station north of Victoria on the island. So
very different background, landscape, economy.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Like very few similarities to Lethbridge, I would imagine.
That's not a big lake. That's called an ocean.
Right.
Yeah. So huge eye-opener, huge different way of life, and that actually was good for me. 4 years later, I moved further up the island to open up the first FM station in the Comox Valley in Campbell River. Okay. I chose Campbell River as home, broadcast to about 200,000 people in that region, and spent the next 16 years there. It just went by in a flash. It was an incredible community. Still have family there. That's where I found my wife. We had our first 2 kids there, and when they were tiny, I always felt that pull, that draw to come back to Lethbridge, which we did. We moved the family back here to follow continue my radio career in 2014. So it's been 11 years. We just celebrated our 7th anniversary in our house, specifically in Copperwood.
Oh, nice.
And we were integrated into a fantastic neighborhood and continued with the radio career, but it was back on the island that I had been in Campbell River for 10 years. And involved in the community in many different ways, as I was in any community. In fact, my first time performing on the stage at the Yates here in Lethbridge, I wasn't even living in Lethbridge anymore. I had moved to Brooks, and there was no local theater company. So a coworker and I created the local theater company so we could be in the One Act Theater Festival. It turned out that would have put us in the Medicine Hat zone. There was no one in the Medicine Hat zone, so we got to perform on the stage of the Eights in Lethbridge.
Nice.
Not a defining moment in my career as a performer. We had zero budget, and so it was called "When God Comes for Breakfast, You Don't Burn the Toast." And I still remember my first line. It was talking to my wife. We were watching a TV show. I wonder if those ducks have finally found a place to live. And that was so many years ago. But
it's permanently etched into the brain.
It's etched in there, right beside the adjudicator destroying us because we had no budget. We performed first on as a potluck supper event on the gym floor in Brooks. Brought that same set. Our fridge for the set of the show was a fridge box painted like a fridge.
Nice. Okay.
So yes, it was not.
Realism was maybe, I guess interesting that your formative years, growing up was all here, and you felt that pullback, and even though you're in Brooks, you feel compelled to just be part of the community.
This has always felt like home. So it was in Campbell River after. And that I share the theater story. That was just one way that I've been involved in many communities.
Right.
Writing and creating community programming on TV stations as well. Did that in Drumheller. Did that in Nanaimo. And then got more involved in the community when I met my wife. We would do everything from we like going for walks. We do dog walking for the SPCA. We taught Sunday school at our church. I would make puppet shows and pre-recorded and then perform the puppet show for the kids. One of those is on, if you do a deep dive on YouTube, it's about 18 years old now, you'll find story time with Sammy and Susie. So but it was after doing all that and being integrated into the community in such a way through radio and through our activities that I saw the role that city council plays in guiding and directing a community, and you being the direct facilitator between the citizens. You can't fit, in the case of Lethbridge, 110,000 people into City Hall. You can fit 9. So
you can't survey them all either.
Exactly. Right? So it is your sense of, if you feel that you're connected enough to the community and you understand their hopes and dreams and wishes and challenges, can you be that person to represent them at City Hall? So I ran. I was successful. It was the day after my 35th birthday. A co-worker said, "Thank the voters if you get in. Thank God if you don't."
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And then I ended up 2 terms at that time in BC. Terms were 3 years, so I did 6 years on City Council. Came back to Lethbridge, refocused on my radio career. Had an opportunity after 30 years doing that to shift to help local businesses and local people upskill and reskill as a project facilitator and training facilitator at Lethbridge College, which then became Lethbridge Polytechnic.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, obviously, elected experience in Campbell River, there's going to be a lot of skills and parallels, but what made you run? Why did you're raising a young family, you're out there, you've been involved in the community, your radio career is going well. How did all of a sudden, I'm going to run for council in Campbell River become a thing? What drove you to run in that initial time?
Getting old.
Okay.
and the focus not just being on myself and realizing what that role serves. And I'll tell you specifically at that time, it was having an awareness of what was going on in the community, but also the makeup of the council at that time was that the family guy that had been part of that council made it very public that he was stepping down. And so we were going to the families, I had my I just had my young daughter at the time. She was just a year old. I realized that family component, that best what you live at that moment, right? So that family component I saw was going to be missing. And it was one of those moments of, if I don't do it on behalf of families, who's going to?
Okay,
so
interesting.
That was part of what compelled me to do it. And also just having been integrated and so involved in the community up to that point, it was like, okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Now, obviously, Campbell River is vastly different than Lethbridge. So what do you think are the transferable skills, or I guess what does that experience, having been an elected official for 2 terms out there, how does that help you in running for office in Lethbridge?
Local Government Leadership Academy. So when you get voted, that's something that they would hold for newly elected officials, and they would ship you all off all across Vancouver Island to one spot you'd meet the other new councillors and mayors of other communities,
And then they pummel you for days.
It's like a recent trainer discussed with me. It's like drinking from a fire hose through a straw.
Okay.
So the first time felt like that, and really it was, what is your role? Why are you there? What can you do for your community? What don't you do for your community? What's your purpose, and how do you achieve that, and how do you engage with the public?
So in BC, that's mandatory training for all councils.
Yeah,
Amazing.
right off the bat. Is that not here?
Many communities do it, but it's not a provincial standard, nor is it mandatory.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the interesting thing that I found, and that is an asset that I found that I brought back here even 11 years ago when I came back in 2014, is I have perspective from another community, I have perspective from another province, but I also have perspective of governance and what works, and in those two terms, what also doesn't work. And so the 2 rounds of Local Government Leadership Academy, but also I guess this is the best time as any to bring up the School of Hard Knocks. Like, it was a trial by fire, and I've been open about this on some of my other interviews. The moment that I got elected was the worst economy that Western Canada's had, possibly until now. 2008, world economy collapsed.
Yeah, huge credit crunch, right?
Yes, yeah. It was a bad time. Locally, it was a horrible time. The forest industry collapsed, and this is where I'd always championed Lethbridge, as saying, there's a mixed economy here. It's diverse, it's bulletproof, it's fantastic, and we can get back to that in a second. But in Campbell River, very resource dependent.
So kind of a one industry, one mill sort of town.
It was a one pulp mill, one sawmill kind of town. There was mining as well, and then aquaculture. But the forestry is Campbell River, and the industry collapsed. There was no bringing it back at that time for the foreseeable future.
Right.
The pulp mill that had been there for 60 years closed. The sawmill that had been there for 50 years closed. Jobs gone. Tax revenue for the city, not specifically talking about the taxpayers, the people that lost their jobs, and that was a loss as well. But the revenue,
the actual revenue to the community itself.
Yeah, millions of dollars just gone at a time when money was tight already. So I started with a community that was hurting. It was so far beyond what I signed up to do, in the sense of, I want to represent young families. Well, now I was representing young families that were out of a job. I was representing a community that was trying to stay alive,
effectively walking into a crisis, really, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was such, in hindsight, and I survived and I walked out the other side. We eventually got to a point where things did get better. The work that we did do as a cohesive group really did impact for the better the community. And, Campbell River is still there in part to the work that we did as that group from 2008 to 2014.
So, I mean, since you brought it up, let's pick it apart a little bit. What was some of the work? So, what did elected officials, how did the city council contribute to diversifying the economy and pulling the community forward? Because I think there's some parallels to now. I mean, certainly Trump's tariffs have impacted our local economy, and we'll talk about that in a bit in terms of what your ideas are. But, the voice of, hindsight is always a good thing. So what were your key lessons out of that experience, and that the things that specifically happened in Campbell River that were sort of, how did you turn it around?
The first piece is, we learned this in a strategic planning session. And this has helped me in my own personal life, and also whenever I'm involved in an organization and you set out your plans and you have your goals and you think you know how you're going to go about it. And this facilitator shared the story of an East Coast Canadian municipality, don't know what size, and everyone campaigned on certain things, that we're going to make the roads better, and we're going to lower taxes, we're going to do this, we're going to do that.
As you do.
Yes, yeah. Those are the things. That's your job. And those are your usual things. But then something that you did not campaign about at all, no one could see coming. And in this story, it was the dead whale that washed up on the beach.
Okay.
And it was dead already, and it sat there rotting, and it got everyone's attention. and needed resources to get rid of it, and time and everything else that took away from the other things that people had campaigned on. So there's always a story in the back of my mind. What's the whale? Where's the whale coming from, and what do we need to prepare ourselves for? But specifically in Campbell River, that skill set was to help that community survive, and that the forest industry collapsing was our whale. We didn't see it coming. Also, at the same time, it was a really big whale because of the world economy and the state that it was.
And the whale's there dead on the beach. Like, there's nothing you can do at this point. You just have to adjust and adapt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So how did we do that? We got creative. We got collaborative. We collaborated with local industry, with the local people that work there. We asked, how can we make things better for you to be successful in this challenging time? And then it was, what else can we facilitate to bring to the community? We don't actively create jobs. That's the province's role, and federal government, and housing and health and other things like that, people have blurred the lines over the last 10 years or so of what they believe their city council is supposed to do, but that does not take away the crucial role of your mayor and your council as the community's biggest cheerleaders,
right?
The biggest spokespeople, the people standing on the top of the mountain. Even if you don't have a mountain, stand on the top, is
whatever you can find,
topographical feature, and make some noise and shout why your community is so fantastic, and attract industry, attract the talented people. Find the ways that you can turn your community into that resource that other people can't deny, that they need it, they want it. And that is something that I want to bring here to another level that is so important right now. There's some things, again, mixed, a diverse economy. We're a big city. It's easier to hide the issues.
Okay.
But there are issues and they need to be dealt with, and people are hurting in our community, and there are people out of work in our community. And so it's transferable. It's what was happening there. How do we deal with that? How do we champion the cause? How do we use every tool in our toolkit as a council to help our community thrive again, and use our voices and our position to attract those people that can help. So
I mean, you've hinted at it a little bit, that there's people hurting, that there's the beginnings of a crisis here. But what made you jump into this race then? Because you come back from Campbell River, you get back into your radio career, doing some great work at Lethbridge Polytechnic, working with industry. Jumping right back into municipal politics feels like another sort of dramatic turn.
Yeah, and it's timing, and it's the world, and it's seeing the need. When I first came back, people found out that I had governance experience from Fort Whoop-Up. They reached out and said, "Hey,
okay,
you want to help us out?"
Yep.
And I was on the board of Fort Whoop-Up for a year, and we'd have our meetings right beside the really big display of antique rifles and other neat equipment that they had in there, and it was a really neat experience, and to see have that connection and be able to share my experience with an asset to our community that had such deep history here to Lethbridge, that I love that whole era. Got my own little YouTube web series that I created around that same timeline.
Okay.
That's how much of a connection that I have with that, and I did a lot of research with local historians that worked at the fort at one time, and they helped me create that as an artist, as an actor, as a director, as a storyteller. That was one of my most proud moments of coming back here and being able to tell that story through some funding through a local broadcasting cell outlet. But timing for now, back to that. People had been asking me, even when I came back, "Okay, you've been on council, why don't you run?" I emceed an event opening the ATB Center when that opened up with the curling rink for the first time, and had a background chat with someone. They said, "We need people like you." And I'm like, "No, I've got
I got things
kids.
to do.
I got things to do. I'm focusing back on my radio career." We had just had our third child, so we had 3 young kids, and I was like, "No, I'm in dad mode and career mode." Flash forward 11 years. I've seen, and part of this was through the lens that I was looking at the community through my work that I was doing at Lethbridge Polytechnic and connecting with businesses, a lot of them manufacturing, and connecting with people, some of them coming from all across Canada to train and get into, introductory level training of windmill technician, of solar panel technician, things like that. Smaller versions of programs that they offer at Lethbridge Polytechnic. And then when local people would be doing that as well, I get a sense of some of the current trends in hiring, but also some of the gaps maybe that we weren't offering or that we could be offering in the future, and really getting an understanding of the local landscape of what was making Lethbridge tick at that time. But still going, okay, we're good. We got post-secondary, we got ag, and we got manufacturing. We're
golden.
Yes, we're golden. We are indestructible. Fast forward to 2025. Ag is hurting from tariffs. Post-secondary, specifically Lethbridge Polytechnic, had to do 10 million in cuts. They lost a lot of good people. They have to do another 10 million next year. Post-secondary is hurting. The university wasn't hit as hard, but they also were hit, and there were good people lost from there. Manufacturing, economic development, Lethbridge. I've always paid attention to what economic development Lethbridge says in this community. Once a city councillor, always a city councillor. Always thinking of that. Again, coming from the time of what are we doing that's growing this community and bringing in that extra tax revenue and taking the tax burden off the taxpayer, right, and creating jobs. What is this current community doing to facilitate that? And beyond that, what could we be doing? I would always be thinking of that. And that's when I noticed manufacturing's trend and the job losses. And when I started campaigning back in May, which feels like an eternity ago, 1,800 job losses in manufacturing here in Lethbridge. Other than LinkedIn, from the nice post that Economic Development Lethbridge was doing, where else were you hearing that? Where else were you seeing that? And I was in a training center where you should be, hearing that from the community, hearing that from our customers specifically, but more so from the people that are looking for those jobs. Right. And that wasn't happening. And as each month went by, I saw that number change by the thousands. And so the last stat that I saw in July was 4,000 jobs lost in manufacturing. You multiply, okay, those aren't all single people. Multiply that by, a couple of kids and a spouse. So now you got a family of 4, family of 5. So that's 20,000 people impacted, people paying mortgages, people who are trying to pay their taxes, people who are just trying to, get their kids their back to school clothes. This is people in our community that are just like in Campbell River when the forest industry collapsed. They're hurting. The difference is no one's paying attention. And that shocked me. And it's like, it actually hurts. Like I've found the spillover effect as well. Talking to people at the door knocking since May, it started slow and it's picked up then. The support industries, not just manufacturing, but I know someone whose brother lost his job as a security guard because that business is no longer doing business. Right. So it's just like when in the good times and tourism and whatnot, when you're and the film industry, when you're bringing activity in, you got that multiplier effect, money circulating around, every dollar turns into $6. It's the opposite impact when you're losing jobs, you're losing industry, you're losing all those jobs that support those industries as well. And that's what's happening right now. And no one else is talking about it. And so I've felt compelled that having seen a community go through this and being through those tough times and knowing the impact that has on families and a community, I started talking about that and really educating people about that as well. And it's a two-sided coin. There's people that haven't been impacted yet that don't quite understand what I'm saying. And then it's the other people that, yes, know exactly what I'm saying, and they don't know what the fix is.
Okay, so that's a great segue. What are your 3 priorities then? You've identified there's a problem. It motivated you to jump into this race and take on the big challenge. And thank you, first of all, for doing that. Having formerly been a mayor for multiple terms in a community, public service is not easy, particularly in this age of the keyboard warrior. Your family, no doubt, is going to have to sacrifice. So first of all, thank you for at least considering it and putting your name forward. And to all the candidates running, I just applaud everyone who's like truly who's putting their name forward. But okay, let's assume you get the job. What are you going to do? What are the top 3 things that you're going to do to have an impact and make a difference?
Number one, policy of fiscal responsibilities. So this is a challenge that we've all been thrown into. And I don't want anyone to ever take this, we live in a democracy, and thank goodness that we do. And so in Alberta, every 4 years, we get a time of checks and balances, the truest form, which is, where are we right now as a community? Are we where we want to be? And what happened the last 4 years, and how can we do better?
Okay.
So with that lens, it's not about personalities. It's about just looking at the work that was done, the work that we wish was done, and then projecting to the future what we hope to be done, where we want our community to be in another 4 years. But beyond that, the people that you have as your mayor and your council for the next 4 years, they're going to be setting a tone and a direction for this community for the next 10, 15, 25 years into the future. Those decisions made now impact future people. Again, impetus for doing this, partly it's my kids. This is their community. They love it. I want to see them grow up in a community where they want, they'll stay here and they'll be raising their families here. So, but looking at policies, and I don't want to use that word as a word to bore people, but it's more the concept of, okay, what's important. The key thing is that fiscal responsibility. The last 4 years, with only 3 projects, and I know how hard the job is, and I know sometimes things can get away from you, and I know you can have the best of intentions. When it continually happens, then you've got a problem. Okay. Something's going on. The problem we have is from 3 projects alone, we're almost, you're doing the math, $50 million over budget. That is a huge impact on a community our size. And think about, besides the tax increase that we had to do to cover that 50 million, think of what we could have done with that money if we specifically set out to do a tax increase to do something with it, versus decisions made the way they were made, the way things played out. Unfortunate, but a succession of things happening like that. It's, it has to stop. Okay. And so that's item number 1. Okay. And that's right on the front of my lip when I'm door knocking, and I'll continue to do that, is $50 million, we lost it. We're not going to get it back. That's on the backs of the taxpayer. That's something that we have to change immediately. So it's watching those budget overruns, watching those projects like a hawk. You always build in contingency, but these overages aren't contingency. Item number 2, there's a lot going on with downtown that's so great and vibrant, and they're held back in a couple of different ways. First is public safety. Okay. I can go back to the 80s of challenges of, what happens in Galt Gardens, and there's been so much positivity, and there's so many good things that happen in that space. My wife's family is Chilean. She's a first-generation Canadian. Spanish was her first language. The kids, they have their little outfits that the tios and tias send from Chile for them to put on here. The authentic clothes. I put on a Chilean soccer shirt, and we go, enjoy Latin Fest at Galt Gardens. So there's great stuff going on here. Unfortunately, as soon as an event clears out, there's our social issues front and center. And I'm not saying that there's a quick, easy fix, but there are things that we could be doing better. And that's A, to help those people, B, to make Lethbridge and specifically downtown safer and more business friendly. The other side to that business friendly is policy number 3, item number 3, that I want to champion the heck out of. This is going back to me standing on top of the highest feature that we have. It might now be, I don't know if it's the grain building, that we've got in the industrial section, or it's the new condos over by the high level bridge. But
we'll find you something to stand on.
Yeah, but that is my true undertaking. That's part of my soul now, of what we had to work so hard to do in Campbell River to save that it's a pro-growth initiative.
Okay.
That means hyping the heck out of your tourism, enabling everything you can for economic development, going to Edmonton and Ottawa on a regular basis, or getting, a Zoom call or whatever you want to use as a feature, and being in regular contact, even 10 times beyond that, regular contact with your partners at the provincial and federal level to make Lethbridge the best place in Alberta to invest and grow a business and a family.
Okay, so what does that look like? I mean, that I think that's a lofty goal, and obviously as an economic developer, I would endorse anything that remotely looks like. Do you have specific thoughts on how you would go about doing that?
It's championing, again, it's that collaboration part of talking to your local partners, seeing what they have, and going back to policy number 2 about red tape. What's holding you back from being more successful? I know, so again, the chats that I've had since May, I've heard stories of people who are, they want to be a success story locally. They have a great idea. They're very motivated. They want to be a key contributor to the success and the fabric of Lethbridge as a business person, and as someone who lives here. And there are things that are holding us back. We have, so I'm gonna go, I don't know if it's ever been shared, the nebulous location of this studio. I don't know if I won't get into specifics, but I'll say we're very close to the location that I stood in line for, the first movie I ever stood in line for, opening night, Batman, Michael Keaton, ATB Center, that way. Yeah,
we are downtown. We're right on 6th Street. We're very close to Festival Square, sitting in this spot.
They still have a movie poster up in that room, and a couple of the projectors that were there. But it was a long time ago, is my point. 80s, long time ago, 1989, June 16th. Still in there because that was a big moment for me. We have city policies that are older than that. This is predating internet, cell phone, anything post dot matrix printers.
Right.
The world has moved on. AI, all of this. We have policies that are 40 plus years old. They are holding this community back. They are holding our business people back. They are holding our residents back. They are outdated. And when I see a 40-year-old policy being looked at, it's like, oh, let's dust that off of the archives. And does this work? No, I can tell you, you blew dust off of it. It doesn't work anymore.
Okay.
It's old. So for those businesses, for those business people, they're saying there are things out there that are holding me back from being successful. That is the last job that is not on the job description of a mayor and a council. We're there to enable people to be successful in their community. There are guidelines. There's,
there have to be standards, and
standards,
for sure.
Exactly. But why do those exist? Why are they there? And why are they 40 years old? And why do they have to be dusted off before someone says, I hear you, and that doesn't make sense anymore, and I want you to be successful.
Right.
So let's change that.
Okay. I mean, I'll come back a little bit to your first point around fiscal responsibility, because I think just about every candidate that I've heard talk in this campaign has talked about that across the board. It's a very common refrain. So in your mind, again, as an elected official, it's not like you're personally going to go line by line through the financials, because there's an army of people that do that. So what are you going to do to kind of create that culture of fiscal restraint and fiscal responsibility? Like, what's your thought process around that?
I'm going to go all Princess Bride on you and say, there's a couple words that come up at election time. Accountability is one. Fiscal responsibility is another one. And it brings me back to the Princess Bride, where he says, you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
Right.
Yeah. So
it gets tossed around, right?
Yes, tossed around. It's it's a thing on posters. Okay. But what does that mean to you? To me, that means you are holding, so for folks not, it's Local Government Leadership Academy time. For people that aren't familiar with the model of mayor and council, and who they work with directly, they have one employee. That's it. One employee, the CAO, the city manager of the city. That is your one employee. That is your ultimate conduit of information that is passed on to you, that you make decisions from. The CAO has an army of people. That's what populates, that's who populates City Hall. Those are the people that are doing the good work. Those are the folks that are doing a lot of things behind the scenes that you rarely get to see. And that's what makes a community tick. And so mayor and council are the governance side of it, the final decision makers, and budget time and the 6 budget cycles that I've been through. You know, I've seen the incredible work that can be done on the other side of the CAO and those positions that exist there.
Because I do think the public has no idea what's required behind the scenes to create
Correct.
reports and generate these things. So, you know,
Massive.
we are blessed to have a civil service and people,
Yes. Yeah.
dedicated professionals to do this work.
Yeah. So with that said, you have to trust your one employee and their model of success that you've given to them, and the communication, how you're communicating what that success looks like, and that filters through to their team.
Okay.
If it isn't firing on all cylinders, if you aren't getting the results that you need, something is broken. And as a council, you need to figure out what that is. And so either it's the decisions that are being made at the council level with the information that they're given, or it's not the proper information that council is being given.
Okay.
Or a combination of both. So fiscal responsibility is bringing in someone with experience. You know what you're looking for, but you also know how to ask the right questions and expect the correct data from your one employee and his team.
Okay. So digging deep and getting into getting better information, more information, different information.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. Because again, I think a lot of people throw accountability and fiscal responsibility around, but you know, there's often not a thing behind that bullet point on the brochure. So I appreciate that.
Let me bring this up too. This is something that the human mind can only comprehend numbers so big. And when you start, this always has to be on the top of mind of anybody on council. When you start dealing with anything over like $1 million, remind yourself what this means. How many families fought all year to pay this amount? How many families is this? What are they doing without that? Because their taxes just went up $1,000 in the last 2 years, and their salaries did not.
Right.
$1 million here. Now you're at $50 million over here, over budget of the millions that we asked from the community for what the work that we needed to do these past 4 years. That's when the human brain loses sight of what that impact is. And unless you're connected with your community, or unless the community is speaking loud enough, your way of those checks and balances every 4 years is to say, you weren't listening to me loud enough. We found someone who will.
Okay. Now you talked a little bit about the job losses, the rising unemployment rate in Lethbridge being a concern to you and prompting you to get more active in this process. Again, elected officials don't create jobs unless they're adding to the bureaucracy. But you know, what's your thought process in terms of, you know, again, whether it's policies or actions, how would you go and stimulate the economy? How would you go and try and create employment here? Continuing
to diversify Lethbridge. You know, there's some work that's being done, and on the side, again, I talked a little bit about what I've done as an actor on stage. Really had a good time early this year with the Lethbridge Symphony and the group that we put on Fiddler on the Roof, and you know, doing musicals few and far between. There are a lot of work. Singing, I'm okay. You know, I did Grease in Sterling in grade 6. Now, as an adult, I reflect back and thought, what were they thinking? Letting kids do Grease. I think it was the edited Grease Junior.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a very much edited version.
Grease Junior. But the other side of me is that I've done a lot of acting, and I've had I was the council liaison for the Island North Film Commission on Vancouver Island to council, and sharing with them the work that they were doing to promote that region for film. And as an actor, I got to tell you, it was so exciting to come back to Alberta, and specifically Lethbridge, and see how Alberta had grown as a hub. The first film I'd ever done as a 19-year-old, I was working radio in Drumheller, and ended up as a background extra, using my skills as a number 11 Lethbridge Air Cadet, as a World War I soldier, Canadian and German, representing 2 sides of my heritage in the film with Brad Pitt. I was this close to Brad Pitt and the kid from E.T., Henry Thomas. That was deleted, but if you watch the deleted scenes DVD, I'm there. I'm cheering. I'm the guy right in between them cheering. Yay, Brad Pitt. I had seen the impact that the film industry has on a community. And again, back to what I said a few minutes ago about the multiplier effect. You bring a film crew to town, those people are staying in hotels, they're eating at local restaurants. I remember I was a background extra, so I'd been an actor for many years, but auditions are tough. You do 100 auditions till you get the job. And so I was on audition about 47 over the course of 5 years after having come back here. I'm like, I haven't been on a film set for quite some time. I'm just going to go back to my roots, try and get in as a background extra and take whatever I can get. I was this close to Kevin Costner and Diane Lane in Let Him Go in Fort McLeod. And then 2 months later, standing right beside Ecto-1 in Ghostbusters.
Cool.
And, you know, and seeing Dan Aykroyd came to a local establishment here and asked, hey, why don't you have my brand of beverage up on the thing? He wrote it on a napkin. Here's the thing, you know, can you love Dan, you know, AKA, what's his character's name from Ghostbusters? I can't believe I'm forgetting this. You got Venkman and this is going to haunt me.
Not important.
Yeah. He's one of the Ghostbusters. He was here in town. He was spending money at a local establishment, and he was an example of that multiplier effect. So the work in its infancy, but it's exciting to see the direction that it's going. We had The Last of Us here, biggest production in Canadian history.
Huge.
You know, our bridge is in the first episode. That is what I know. That's what I've been in. I've participated in it directly. I understand the value it has to communities, and that's something that started. I want to keep growing that, and that's an example of how you can diversify an economy. There's so much great stuff going on here, but that is one example that we haven't even remotely tapped our potential.
Okay, awesome. Now, from a regional collaboration is another one of those Princess Bride words that get phrases that gets chucked around by candidates. I've heard you talk a little bit about it on the campaign trail. So what does regional collaboration look like, and how does that sort of relate to some of this policy work around growing the economy and diversification?
I'm going to get federal for a second. I've had a lot of questions. You know, this is a 2025 topic. We've had a lot thrown at us. We had our neighbors to the south saying, "Hey, come on, you know, come on over.
Just join us. It'll be fine."
And you know, a few people have said, you know, where do you stand on that? And there's issues, and I'm sure this happened to you as well in your role in the past. People will come to you with questions that they think is related to your role that really isn't connected. Right. And back to where I was saying that, you know, provincial and federal partners, we gotta connect with those people on, you know, especially in the challenges that we're going through right now. We got to connect with those people in a very strong way. But at a federal level, I've been asking questions that, from a council and a mayor perspective, it doesn't quite mesh. But on a personal level, I'll share this, and it's, do you want to ditch Canada? And my very clear answer is no. Why? We're stronger together. And that is the same principle for our regional partners. Okay. That's the same principle for, you know, Coaldale, for Tabor, you know, for Sterling, all these regional partners that we have that are in this area. I have that small town understanding, having grown up in Sterling until high school. I know the part that they have to play. I know the good work that's going on in those communities, and I know how they complement and mesh with Lethbridge into the region that we create. And this is what's different about Alberta, and this is what Alberta could take from the BC model. BC, you have regional districts. Those are the rural areas, like our counties here, but right. And then you have your municipalities, the bigger cities, and Campbell River is a municipality that I was on council with. Here, the model is different in that everything is considered a municipality. It's not that you have the regional districts and then a center core. And what's lost in that is the collaboration and the mutual respect and need to rely on each other for services for your economy. In BC, I was a representative on council appointed to the Comox Strathcona Hospital Board. So all those words don't make sense because it's a collection of about 8 or 9 different regional districts in this area on Vancouver Island, plus 3 municipalities. But that board was made up of all of us with a common goal. Our region needed a new hospital. And so to achieve that goal, would it have worked as well if we were all fighting as 12 different entities, separate entities, saying, well, we want this over here. Well, we want this over here.
Pick me.
Yes, it would have never been done. And then, you know, all these years later, they'd still be bickering about it. There's just no way. But when you bring them together and you realize the strength that you have, you know, stronger together, what you can achieve, what you can do, the imprint that you have on the map, and especially when you're going after provincial and federal, and if you're going after something that we haven't even talked about yet, a large infrastructure, big ticket item, you do it better together.
Okay, well, again, you brought it up, so I'm going to go there. The bridge is inevitably a question that comes up, and there are people who are adamant that that should be something that moves forward very, very quickly. It's already in the capital plan, you know, for some engineering in 2027. So what is your thought around a third bridge, and what is the strategy in your mind?
So I'm gonna be cute for a minute and say Lethbridge has one bridge. We have one bridge, and this summer it got busted. And so Lethbridge didn't have a bridge. We were borrowing the province's bridge.
Right.
To move an entire city back and forth for the entire summer. We had zero bridge and limited capacity. And as a West Sider, I was seeing the daily impenetrable wall of traffic, not just cute, just go to LA and see what traffic. Oh, I've driven in Vancouver. Yeah, they know what they have. Oh, it's just like that translated. No, it is a bottleneck of your workforce, of your emergency services, of your economy going nowhere.
Right.
Because our one resource was shut down due to an accident. And I had seen it when I worked in radio, and I would work from downtown and see the West Side Hill. And as soon as it's been this way for years. This was the summer of anger, you know, just from a multitude of things that happened in succession. But it really brought to attention what's been an issue for years. We're years behind of where we should be right now as a community this size. And that's also another topic of discussion is we're a city of 110,000 plus people serving a region of several 100,000 people. And you can't get from one side of the city to the other if there's an accident that happens, and that shuts down our one bridge. I would see it from the radio station, and I'd be chatting with my cohort in the newsroom and say, okay, let me know when the highway shuts down, because you're taking tens of thousands of people that now can't take that route, putting them on the only other way to get to or from the west side.
Right.
It's inevitable. You will get that second accident, and then people are going nowhere. These are people talking about the families. My wife works downtown. She can't get home till 10 o'clock at night. What if I'm out of town? What if my kids are at blast program after school with a day home provider, with a multitude of things that they just close down at 5:30, whether the bridge is broken or not? That's not even talking about emergency services. What if there's a disaster on the west side? Our hospital's on the south side. It's critical infrastructure. It's not a nice to have. And I say this to the people in the community that never take the West Side Hill. Don't want to think about a potential tax increase, and I can get to that in a second about how we can minimize or avoid that.
Because that's my next question, is how we're paying for it, but we'll get there.
Yeah, and a whole lot of people, and I've been answering it like crazy online.
So third bridge,
do this and do that?
Third bridge is a key critical infrastructure in your mind.
But again, I say to the people that never go to the west side, it is our economy. It is our connection to that side of the community. And now, right or wrong with the decisions that were made by this council in the 70s to say, hey, let's build a university on the other side of the river. We now have, you know, the last stats are a couple years old, 43,000 people. So add however many more thousand to that. It's the largest piece of Lethbridge is now on the west side. And it's not whether you use the Y or not. It's not whether you go over there and shop or not, or have a day home provider there or not. It is the people that work and live on two sides of the city, south and north and west, as those two pieces.
Okay, so critical infrastructure. I'm bought in. Get all the arguments. But you just told me a little while ago about fiscal responsibility and accountability and restraint. So how do I pay for a $300 million
bazillion-dollar thing? And this is I'm gonna be vocal here now. This is what is frustrating. when you have a core group of people, the people that are supposed to be championing your community, helping your community grow, helping it receive its and plan its proper infrastructure for the size that it is and the growth that you are planning 25 years from now, say to the community, and I heard people say this at a recent forum, cost, other stuff, it showed the lack of commitment and the lack of understanding of how you actually can get big ticket infrastructure items done.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to Vancouver Island and the hospitals. So we did intensive, widespread community consultation. What model is going to serve us best? Hospital in the middle of these two main municipalities, Comox Valley, Comox and Courtenay, and Campbell River, and there's a little place called Black Creek, great beach right there. Or do we build two hospitals? And it was months, if not years of consultation. We decided on the model, one in Comox by the air base, one in Campbell River. There was going to be slight differences in that there'd be some specialties in at one that weren't at the other, and vice versa. Once we knew what the community needed, once we knew what the model was that was going to serve the community the best and what they wanted, then we went at it, and we did not stop. And any time that we were in Vancouver, any time that we were doing the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities just on the island, our provincial reps, our federal reps, the deputy minister to the health minister, anybody and everybody that had anything to do with moving that project forward, we did not stop talking to them, confirming and letting them know what our model was, showing them our business case of why that was the right thing to do for those communities until it was done. And there were many other communities in BC that were in the queue that needed hospitals, just like schools, hospitals, all this infrastructure that doesn't matter what province you're in, there's always someone that needs it. There's some money out there. There's always some money out there. We fought so hard that they gave us the money. They made that happen. The other piece is, and I've talked about this on some other videos, that was a total of $650 million worth of infrastructure. And we worked on that as a massive project, years worth. The other one was helping facilitate with government agencies in whatever way that council could, was helping the BC power providers called BC Hydro. And they had to do a $1 billion dam refurbishment. It started at about 800 million, and over the couple of years that we were always advocating for it on behalf of BC Hydro and the community, because it was our water source, it was our power source, and there was also the opportunity for, again, you're always looking for the whale. What's the thing that's going to attack my community? What's the thing that's going to shut it down that I don't see coming? What do I have to be proactive about? The proactivity was, you had a dam up here, the water's spilling down here, down 3 water slides down the hill into the hydro generating station right here. It would spin turbines, make power, and then come out here in the Campbell River, and that was our drinking water. There was a bridge going over the water slide portion right here that logging trucks used on a regular basis.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It's like Final Destination, which, by the way, was filmed just outside Campbell River on our Inland Island Highway that the province had built after, again, this is where your infrastructure of roads, including bridges and highways, all interconnect your region. And we had the Old Island Highway that would take 3 hours to get from Campbell River to Nanaimo. That Inland Island Highway changed it to an hour and a half. And that also became an asset that we were able to close that highway to make a couple $1 million from the film company. If you've ever seen the Final Destination with the logging truck and the logs coming at the people and squishing them, that was the Final Destination that filmed there. We were imagining, rightly so, projecting, what if one of those logging trucks goes through the bridge and crushes our water supply and the water feeding, the pipes feeding our water supply and our power supply. So that was part of what then inflated up to $1 billion refurbishment, years of advocating for that and helping in any way that we could to move that forward to now it's this gleaming, amazing, incredible feat of engineering that they did. It's, you know, look online, John Hart Hydro Generating Station. It's incredible. And so the city now has a safe water supply. That dam is good for another probably 60 to 100 years. And it showed, you know, the other piece, I cannot miss this enough. This was one of our key elements of bringing jobs back to Campbell River when we lost them from the collapse of the forest industry. And it took us a couple of years. None of these things happen quick. And the bridge is not a quick fix. So we need to find other temporary solutions, smaller, simpler things that maybe aren't being done right now. But if we start advocating now for it, if we start the discussions now of what is that true model that we need, we can achieve what we did with that $1 billion dam and the thousands of jobs that brought in for construction over the course of years. And Campbell River's population went up. They built a whole lot of condos. I don't recognize the street that I used to drive up to the radio station from down the block that I used to live. It's incredible to see the growth in that community. It grew about 10,000 people in the 4 years span since I left and went back, and the dam was built.
Very cool. So all of a sudden, a $250 million bridge is pretty cheap compared to a $1 billion dam.
It is, and it can be done. And so the simple answer is you do the consultation, you get the shovel-ready project that you know your community is sold on and needs, and you fight tooth and nail with all levels of government. Even just, I think it was today, our premier just said, oil pipeline, that is our next major project as a province that's important to us. The federal government right now is handing out a lot of money on major infrastructure projects.
Right.
You got the plans for the bridge ready, start fighting for it.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, I can't believe it's almost been an hour. We've got just a couple of minutes left. So
I'm such a chatty cat.
No, it's a beautiful thing. I'd ask you two quick things. First, how if people want more information about you, more information about the campaign, want to learn more, want to chat with you, what's the best ways to get a hold of you or reach you?
RyanMennie.ca. That's you know, my announcement for mayor video. It really gives the reason, if we don't have time to talk about it now, why I pivoted during this campaign. I think I've shared a lot of reasons why that I wasn't hearing in the discourse publicly from the people running. I was hearing it at the doors, and I also did have solutions to share with them. But I've got much more at RyanMennie.ca. As I like to say, there are many candidates, but there's...
That's catchy. My final question for you is, any final thoughts or voting public tonight? You got a couple of minutes. What's the last thing you would leave with the voters?
Okay, I'm gonna talk to the camera right now and directly to you, the viewer, and thank you for the amount of time that you to spend with us, and Trevor, thank you so much for me to have this audience. Municipal government can be pretty dry if you let it get that way, but really it is the level of government that has the biggest impact on your daily life. I'm here to make it exciting for you. I'm here to make it accessible for you. I'm here to help you understand it. I'm here to help champion it and rally for this community. And for the people that are hurting right now and that no one has talked to them yet, I'm that guy. I'm going to lead that team to help bring those jobs back, do everything that we need to do to grow this community, to take the tax burden off the shoulders of the taxpayer. Bringing in, we didn't dive deep into that. When you get more revenue from industry, you pay less as a taxpayer. That's the model. That's how you get away from the level of taxes that we're paying right now, along with the fiscal responsibility of not going massively over budget. It's bringing in that extra revenue. So get excited about this election. These are the people that will be speaking on your behalf for the next 4 years. Hold them accountable. Make them available. Make sure they know what that word means if they don't think they know what it means. And be excited about what Lethbridge is, but even more so, what it could be. That's my job. That's what I want to do for this community, and that's your council's job. Get excited about that and stick it to them to get them just as passionate about it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Best of luck with the rest of the campaign. And thank you for stepping up and being a candidate. It takes a lot, and I appreciate that you did that.
Thank you, Trevor. My wife and family you know, they put in just as much commitment as me. So the thanks really goes to them.
Fair enough.
As well.
Okay, awesome. Well, folks, that's our episode for this evening. Thanks again for joining us. Really appreciate your time tonight. The advance polls open in just 6 days. So if you're a Lethbridge resident, October the 8th through the 20th, you can find all of the information on the city's website. That's lethbridge.ca. If you want to learn more about Mr. Mennie's campaign and his principles, what he stands for, that's ryanmennie.ca. And join me next Thursday. We rescheduled a special episode. Michelle Day Miles is the executive director of Nikayuko Japanese Garden. And unfortunately, we had a technical issue that bumped her out of our August episode. So we've rescheduled that for next Thursday. Same channel, same place, same time. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.